I will not fight her for your entertainment. But I will fight you! Or are you a coward?
No, shut it down. We got a few things to discuss.
Sonja.
Oh, hi there. My name is Professor Vogon Jeffs, and I've got a question for you. What does the 1985 version of Red Sonja have in common with the 2025 version? That's right, they're both laughably terrible movies that fail to do justice to an arguably awesome character. But here's the thing. I know next to nothing about Red Sonja. I was a huge comic book nerd growing up, but never got into titles like Conan the Barbarian or Kull the Conqueror or Red Sonja.
Disappointed!
No disrespect or anything like that. I'm sure these books had some great writing and some great art. Those stories just weren't for me. So if you've landed on this video and are expecting some expert take on the cinematic adaptations couched in a deep knowledge of the source material, well, you're in the wrong place. For one thing, this isn't a channel about comic books or graphic novels.
Really? You mean it?
It's a channel about movies. And if your movie depends on an intimate knowledge of lore established in another medium, well, I hate to break it to you, but your movie sucks. However, in an effort to not be completely ignorant, I've done a bit of research on the character and identified 3 elements of apparent importance: origin, ability, and sexuality. From what I understand of the character, and from what I've gathered from the 1985 and 2025 cinematic adaptations, these are the 3 most relevant points worth discussing. Let's do a quick overview. Red Sonja's origin was established primarily in 2 Marvel comics, 1975's Kull and the Barbarians number 3, and 1982's The Savage Sword of Conan number 78. At the age of 21, Sonja's family is killed by a group of mercenaries and she is raped by the leader of the group. She tries to fight back but isn't strong enough. Seeking revenge, Sonja is approached by the Red Goddess, That's a tough one. It. Sonja is approached by the Red Goddess, who bestows some bitchin' fighting skills upon her. The catch? She's not allowed to hump anyone unless they can best her in combat, specifically dudes. Oh, and apparently she's an ancestor of Spider-Man's mainstay Mary Jane Watson. Get it? Because they both have red hair? Okay, listen, Marvel is the house of ideas. They didn't specify that those ideas were good or not. Just go with it. Anyway, in 2013, writer Gail Simone got her hands on the property and retconned the character by removing the raping and making the she-devil with a sword bisexual.
Touch it.
An update for modern audiences with delicate sensibilities, otherwise known as pussies. Ultimately, I don't really give a toss. I think losing sleep over comic book retcons is a little ridiculous. That being said, I also think it's kind of bullshit. Gail Simone wasn't interested in writing a Red Sonja story. She was interested in co-opting the character to satisfy her own fantasies. It would be like me getting my hands on Batman and changing his origins so that instead of witnessing the murder of his wealthy parents, he was just traumatized by their bitter middle-class divorce. I mean, I guess there's nothing inherently wrong with that, I suppose, but I think most Batman fans would rightfully be like, "Yo, dude, what the fuck?" As a natural follow-up to her origin story, Red Sonja, like most other comic book heroes and heroines, has particular abilities and/or powers. So, what are Red Sonja's abilities and/or powers? Fuck if I know. I'm sure there are some Hyborian nerds out there who have an answer, but I could barely figure it out. According to the internets, it basically boils down to being a skilled swordsman, climber, and horseback rider, as well as a natural leader with a deep understanding of the supernatural. Being unfamiliar with the source material, I would naturally expect any film adaptation to answer a few simple questions, like how did she become a skilled swordsman, climber, and horseback rider? What makes her a natural leader? And where did she acquire such a deep knowledge of the supernatural? I mean, the worst thing that you could possibly do in a movie is not explain that stuff, right? That feels like the bare minimum for things that should be established about the character. Yeah? Can we all agree? Good. Lastly, and I know this is going to come as a bit of a shock to everyone, the theme of sexuality plays a pretty important role when discussing the character. There's the obvious connection to her original origin story, the hypersexualized imagery of the character, and the sexual orientation gerrymandering of the early 2010s. Like it or not, Red Sonja is an inherently sexual character. We'll discuss this further as it pertains to the big screen stories, but for now, let's just address the two primary incarnations of the character. Pre-21st century Sonja's origin, as mentioned previously, starts with some pretty horrific abuse that leads to a supernatural agreement stipulating power and skill in exchange for a pseudo-celibacy pact. On its surface, it's ridiculous.
Here's a skill boost, but now you're not allowed to screw anyone who isn't stronger or more skilled than you.
It's weird. God damn it, guys. You know it's weird.
Weird.
It's a really awkward way of saying that she has to hold herself to a higher standard, that she can only be involved with someone who is worthy of her awesomeness. The way it's presented comes across as just plain goofy, but regardless, it makes her abilities and character intrinsically tied to her sexuality. The 21st century incarnation of Sonja is different, but also kinda the same. From what I could gather, the character received a distinctly feminist makeover that removed the abuse and supernatural intervention from her origin in order to empower her and imbue a sense of autonomy. She still gets her freak on, but now she does so with men and women as long as they aren't grossed out by her barbarian stank. Well, despite the changes to Sonja's origin and the not-so-subtle attempts at hiding more and more of her skin, even though Conan is still running around in a thong, Sonja remains a character defined, at least in part, by her sexuality. On a side note, am I the only one who finds it hilarious that despite the constant crying from people about how Sonja's scale bikini or chainmail armor doesn't do anything to protect her and exists purely for male titillation, I can't think of a single dude who has ever complained about Conan running around in his underwear?
Did they ever make you wear this? I would have cut the balls from any man who tried to make me.
Strange how that works, eh? Now that we've got that out of the way, let's talk about these elements as they pertain to the movies. Before diving in, here's a quick recap of each film for those who, understandably, couldn't be bothered to watch them. Brigitte Nielsen is Red Sonja, a warrior granted extraordinary strength and fighting prowess after being assaulted by soldiers of Queen Gedren's army. Seeking vengeance, Sonja is gifted strength from a goddess and trains to become a master swordsman. She is called to action when Queen Gedren steals a powerful magic relic and mortally wounds her sister in the process. With her dying breaths, Sonja's sister tasks her with destroying the relic to prevent it from blowing up the world. Sonja is joined by Conan, but not Conan, rather a noble warrior named Calidor, and later by Prince Tam and Falcon. On her journey, Sonja gets into one sticky situation after another and, despite being imbued with magical strength, always seems to need Calidor to bail her out. After infiltrating Queen Gedren's fortress, Sonja and her team of warriors confront the poorly developed antagonist and destroy the magical MacGuffin. The team of unlikely heroes escape the collapsing fortress and part ways, and Sonja says screw it and makes out with Calidor. Matilda Lutz is Red Sonja, the seemingly sole survivor of a barbarian invasion on her homeland. She escapes into the forest and becomes a fierce nomadic warrior devoted to an ambiguous forest goddess. She embarks on a quest for justice when she discovers Emperor Dragon, a young and tyrannical ruler in search of a magic book of knowledge, is butchering and enslaving magical creatures or some nonsense like that. In her haste to free the captured beasts, Sonja is caught and imprisoned, forced to become a gladiator for the Emperor's amusement. She helps her fellow gladiators escape and stages a resistance from her magical forest, but she is overwhelmed by the Emperor's forces and outmatched by Anicia, Emperor Dragon's top enforcer, a former gladiator champion with an ambition to become Dragon's empress. Defeated by Anicia, Sonja's horse takes her to the forest goddess where she is endowed with a can-do attitude and sent back into battle. She kicks everyone's ass with the power of positive thinking and defeats Emperor Dragon with an apology.
I'm sorry.
Why are you sorry? You've come here to kill me. You've won.
I came to kill Dragon. But if I'd held on tighter to your hand when you were a boy back then, both our lives might have been different now.
As mentioned previously, both of these movies are dog shit. There are some notable differences, but by and large they both fall well below the watermark for a good action fantasy flick. The protagonists and antagonists of both movies are hilariously underdeveloped. Character motivations are non-existent, and there is absolutely nothing compelling about any of it.
Oh no! We suck again!
World building is either overcomplicated or glossed over entirely. Pacing is horrible, leading to excruciatingly boring stretches of pointlessness. The acting is atrocious.
We could have ruled the world together. Now I shall rule alone, and you will die for what you did to me.
The writing is stilted and repetitive. The action scenes are poorly choreographed and monotonous, and both movies left me asking myself why I bothered wasting my time watching either of them. Now, that might lead you to wonder why we're here. If both movies are so god-awful, what can we glean from them? What's the lesson to be learned? And that is a good f***ing question. Well, remember those 3 elements from earlier in the video? Origin, ability, and sexuality? Well, we're going to discuss those elements as they pertain to the big screen adaptations with a short lesson on character development.
Sonja.
Character development is the process of creating fictional characters with depth and complexity. It involves crafting a character's identity, backstory, personality, and motivations throughout a story. As a shorthand for viewers and writers, we can summarize character development using a handful of critical questions. Who are they? We aren't just looking for the character's name. This question is about identifying their core identity, who they are on a fundamental level. Their values, their education, their relationships, and so on. This question defines how the character views the world, and when it comes to Red Sonja, both movies do an absolutely horrendous job of addressing this. I mean, for f***'s sake, neither movie can even properly establish why she's called Red Sonja. This is one of the primary reasons that both movies suck. I mean, we have no idea who Sonja is as a character. She's an empty vessel that we can't relate to on any level. What is their objective? What is the character trying to accomplish? This question relates to the character's desires and goals in a particular scene and within the overall story. Knowing what the character wants is key to understanding their actions. In Red Sonja 85, Sonja is out for revenge, not just for herself, but for her sister. This is represented by Sonja's bloodlust for Queen Gedren and her mission to destroy the magical MacGuffin, respectively. In Red Sonja 25, Sonja's objective is, if I have to take a wild stab at it, protecting nature from an encroaching industrialism? When does the character exist? When does the character act? There are 2 distinct questions here. One pertains to the time frame of the story because the time period in which the character exists will dictate their behavior. Either they are historically accurate, behaving in a manner that is in line with the time period, or historically anachronistic, behaving in a manner uncharacteristic of the time period. The second variation of the question pertains to when the character is propelled into action. At what point will their core identity force their hand? For Nielsen's Sonja, this is the abuse she suffers at the hands of Gedren's soldiers and the death of her sister, 2 visceral incidents that motivate her actions. For Lutz's Sonja, it's the slaughter of some magical forest creatures and the death of her fellow gladiators. Goddamn, who f***ing knows? Where does the story take place? This question is not only about the location of the story, but the larger setting the character inhabits, the geographical setting as well as the socio-economic setting. Red Sonja is supposed to be a natural leader, but both films fail miserably when it comes to establishing this. In the 1985 version, it's just ignored completely. Sonja is never portrayed as a leader. She's more or less sidelined in favor of a group dynamic. In the 2025 version, she is thrust into a leadership role after helping the gladiators escape, but at no point does the story address why she would be a good leader. As a child, she escapes a barbarian attack by fleeing to a magical forest where all of her fellow survivors die. Years later, her morality causes the death of a fellow gladiator and puts others in jeopardy. At no point in the story do we learn why a loner from the forest would make a good leader. She just instantly becomes one because the piss-poor plotting demands it.
Why? Why?
Why are they doing what they're doing? This question deals with the character's motivation and is deeply tied with their core identity. Going back to the 80s adaptation, this is one of the few questions that gets a legitimate answer. In the 2025 story, it bounces around uncontrollably. Sonja is doing it to protect the forest, and now she's doing it for her gladiator friends, and now she's doing it for her childhood tribe, and now she's doing it because the Emperor is a dick, and oh, now she's doing it because of the forest goddess, or herself, or whatever. Pick a f***ing motivation and stick with it. Jesus f***ing Christ. And finally, how are they going to achieve their goal? Now, this is the plot of the story. Without asking and answering these questions, writers and actors will be incapable of creating characters that truly resonate with their audience. If you want to create a compelling, believable character, you need to establish that character in a compelling and believable way. This is something that the 1985 movie, despite being awful in numerous ways, actually handles with efficiency and effectiveness. Within the first few minutes of the story, we understand that Sonja has been endowed with the strength needed to seek vengeance. And before sending her on her quest, the film also establishes that she has been training for some time to become a master swordsman.
You have nothing more to learn, Red Sonja. You are the master of the master.
This is all accomplished with minimal dialogue and minimal screen time. In the 2025 version, none of that crap is ever established. Sonja's village is raided and she runs off into the woods. When we next see her, she's all grown up and capable of handling a knife and killing armed guards and Mary Sued to the nines. The filmmakers, M.J. Bassett and writer Tasha Huo, want you to believe she's capable of kicking ass just because she's survived growing up in a magical forest. But they don't bother showing her trials and tribulations. They don't establish anything that could explain her innate abilities. And for all the random ultra-feminists who have made their way this far into the video, screaming at their screens about it not being a problem when the characters are male, stop it. Willful ignorance isn't attractive either physically or intellectually. It's not about men or women. It's about characters. Believable characters. A Gary Stu is just as bad as a Mary Sue. And it's not like doing the legwork for your characters is hard. Red Sonja 85, as I've mentioned, is not a good movie. But Richard Fleischer, the director, and writers Clive Exton and George MacDonald Fraser knew enough to include a couple scenes and a couple lines of dialogue to flesh out the character before dropping us in on the action. Now, both versions backfire for opposing reasons. In Red Sonja 85, the Red Goddess gives Sonja supernatural strength, so it's jarring and illogical when every challenge she faces requires the assistance of the non-supernatural strength of Calidor. Honestly, what was the point of giving her supernatural strength if it's always trumped by the natural strength of others? And when the forest goddess from Red Sonja 25 resurrects the heroine with what can only be interpreted as willpower,
You can do it! Cut his f***ing head off!
it doesn't make any sense when she proceeds to take down an entire army without breaking a sweat. And when it comes to the inherent sexuality of the character, neither movie does a great job of dealing with it. Nielsen's version shows less skin, yet comes across as infinitely more sensual and appealing than Lutz's version. But that aspect of the story is never really explored with any seriousness. And the 2025 version just mocks the whole idea of it.
And that protects.
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. The crowd will love it.
So, why do I even bring it up? Well, I think I'm just sick of the modern cynicism surrounding sex. As a society, we've reverted to a pre-70s prudism, and it's driving me mental. The 1985 Red Sonja, Brigitte Nielsen, shows less skin throughout her movie, doesn't fixate on or mock her attire, and comes across as strong and sensual at the same time. There's something about her that exudes sexuality, and at no point is she clad in a scaled bikini. The 2025 version of Red Sonja, in stark contrast, shows substantially more skin throughout the movie, yet exudes zero sensuality. She sucks it in. I don't even find Brigitte Nielsen particularly attractive, but her version of Sonja gave me an instant chub. Watching 2 hours of Matilda Lutz, for some inexplicable reason, made my little guy crawl up inside me like a caterpillar hiding from the rain in a cave. Oddly enough, I think that may have been director M.J. Bassett's intention. Both movies drive me mad because the sexuality aspect is such a rich area for character development. Sonja is given power, she is given the strength to achieve her goals. But this strength is a double-edged sword. It leaves her isolated and lonely. It separates her from others, and at the end of the day, she's still a human being with needs and wants. There is a deeply personal and touching story nested in her sexuality. But neither the dudes from the 80s or the chicks from the 2020s were mature enough to address it with any seriousness. Anyway, maybe in another 40 years we'll get a competent version of Red Sonja on the big screen, one that will finally do justice to the character. Until then, enjoy these two adaptations because that's all we've got for now. Or better yet, avoid them both, because both Red Sonja movies are truly terrible.